Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Guys at Magic. This is Hunter, Steven, David, and Shane. Say what up, boys.
Yo.
Hello.
What's up, nerds?
We are back. This time we are doing the Precon Commander grades. That's right. We're going through all of the Precon Commanders and the alternative commanders from the latest Precon decks from March of the Machine. We have a lot to get through, so I think we should just go ahead and start it straight away. First up, Bright Palm Soul Awakener. Bright Palm Soul Awakener is 1, a red, a green, and a white for a 4/3 legendary creature, Fox Shaman. It has backup 1. In case you don't know, it's a new mechanic from the set. It says when this creature enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. If that's another creature, it gains the following ability until end of turn. Well, that following ability says whenever this creature attacks, double the number of +1/+1 counters on target creature. That creature can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less this turn. Very strong effect here. This is the Counters Matter deck. The name of the deck is called Call for Backup, and this is the face commander. I'll go first since I was the one that upgraded this deck. I did not choose Bright Palm to be the face commander of the deck, but this card itself is powerful. If by any chance you were able to give this haste and then this comes in and gives something else this ability, oh boy, that's a lot of counters going on one creature because that's going to double and then double. So whoever's prepared to get hit by a lot of counters is going to cry. David, what do you think about this?
I think this card's pretty neat. I mean, it's kind of a typical counters, like care about counters style of commander. I do think that its ability is fairly relevant. So like being able to double all those is pretty nice. I don't know. It's a very straightforward, big smashy type of card.
Definitely big smashy counters. Give it trample, give it haste. Like I said, this is going to be a beast of a card.
I think I like backup as a mechanic. We see some cards that came out in the set that might have had better backup abilities, but for just counters matter, yeah, it seems pretty fun.
Especially that little the text at the very end, especially that says it can't be blocked except with power 2 or less, or it can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. I think that's really relevant and can actually run over anybody that's doing like a little go ride strategy that hasn't really pumped up their board yet.
Especially in these group of precons, because one of the other sets or one of the other precons happens to care about making a bunch of little things, so it doesn't match up very well in that sense.
Steven, what do you think of this card?
Meh.
Meh.
I mean, dude, it's a card. It does what it's supposed to do. You've seen these counter strategies all the time, except now we're including backup. The flavor text at the bottom's pretty cool. I like the creature with power 2 or less can't be blocked. But
flavor.
I don't know, man. It's basically relevant text. I mean, yeah, but it's flavorful. You know what I mean?
I mean, I don't think that's flavor text at all. I'm actually with Shane on this one. That I think that's very relevant. This is going to prevent your opponent from jump blocking with mana dorks or other little utility creatures.
It's just boring. It's an upgraded counters. It's whatever.
Okay.
And that's the thing about this. It is counters. It is not double the power and toughness until end of turn. It's double the counters. They stick around. Do it again next turn. That's going to get out of hand.
I play a deck where I have a card that is an enchantment and it lets me double the amount of +1/+1 counters. At the beginning of my upkeep, and it's just like, okay, it was just a little slow for me. Now, granted, obviously this deck is built around a bunch of counters, so I mean, I'm sure it'll be pretty scary, but I don't know. I'm whatever about it.
Yeah, Hunter's upgrade, you can switch either of these commanders. I think that'd be pretty good regardless.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go ahead and move on to the grades for Bright Palm. I'll start it off. I am just going to give it a C. It does the big countery thing, but we've seen the countery thing pop off before. A cool new ability with doubling everything, but it's still just the big countery thing. So, C.
I'm going to agree, dude. C.
Yeah, I'm here for that as well. It's very middle of the road, but I mean, like as a pre-constructed legendary, I think this is honestly exactly where I like to see him. It's very easy to just kind of like understand what this deck does. I'm still going to give it a C, though.
C.
Look at that.
There we go. We're all on the same page there. Bright Palm Soul Awakener gets an average grade of a C. Moving on to the backup for Call for Backup, it's Shalai and Hallar. It is 1, a red, a green, and a white for a 3/3 legendary creature angel elf. It's got flying, it's got vigilance. It says whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on a creature you control, Shalai and Hallar deals that much damage to target opponent. We saw this deck in action. We did our Precon battle. This was the card that I just said that I swapped in the Call for Backup Precon. And it is powerful if you can get the cards. Obviously, it goes infinite with Red Terror, Heliod, War Elemental, putting infinite counters, doing infinite damage. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, I think this really is this is a card that you probably do want to play just in that combo deck. Green has some pretty solid options when it comes to tutors for those creatures as well. So it really shouldn't be that difficult for you to be able to assemble this. I don't know if you're actually going to be playing this outside that combo.
I think this card would have been really scary if it wasn't being shattered by something else at the table. Little, alluding at something, but you got overshadowed by something big time while you played this card, Hunter.
I mean, not to spoil it too much, but this card was a monstrosity at the Precon upgrade battle. I mean, it literally had to be taken care of almost every single time, and if it wasn't, it was just an immediate problem. So I think this is a great commander. I think this is a great card. I think that the fact that it goes infinite so easily with a couple cards, and then if you're actually wanting to do the infinite combo, there are plenty of tutors in all of these colors that'll let you get there. So
it's true. I didn't put any tutors in the deck that I made because I'm kind of against combos in a sense, but I'll put the combo in the deck. I'm just not going to search for the combo. I'm not going to make the deck surrounded by a combo. But it does have that ability to go and search for it if you really wanted to, and if you get the combo, you just win the game immediately. Having a combo piece in the command zone is legitimately scary.
Very.
Let's go ahead and start off with the grades. I'm giving this an A because it does have that ability just to combo off and win immediately.
You're biased.
I'm in the same boat. This is a card that if it resolves, you have to kill it immediately. There's just too much that combos with this.
So what's your grade?
Oh, I'm agreeing with Hunter. I think this is an A.
Oh.
That is also assuming that you're playing specifically for that strat. If you're trying to do the fair game, I think this is probably closer to a C, but I'm never going to assume my opponent is playing the fair game if they have this commander.
I mean, bouncing off of what you and Hunter, bouncing off of what you and Hunter said, I think I'm going to give this a B, and only because since it is so strong on that route, I think it's just going to die every time it hits the table.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a B as well, just because the hate generator.
Well, the average here is going to be an A, Shalai and Hallar. Next up, Brimaz, Blight of Oreskos. Brimaz, Blight of Oreskos is 2, a white and a black for a 3/4 legendary creature, Phyrexian Cat. It says whenever you cast a Phyrexian creature or artifact creature spell, incubate X, where X is that spell's mana value. Also, a brand new mechanic to the set. In case you didn't know what Incubate X is, it's create an incubator token with X +1/+1 counters on it, and pay 2, transform this artifact. It transforms into a 0/0 Phyrexian artifact creature. Brimaz also says at the beginning of each end step, if a Phyrexian died under your control this turn, proliferate. I want to start with David here.
I think this card is just okay. In all honesty, it's a value engine that is designed to be really mid-rangey and take over the game in the late game, but I actually don't think Incubate is a very good mechanic. It's slow and still mana intensive.
I disagree.
I know Incubate. You
do. I've said it before, I'll say it again. This is one of my favorite precons I've seen in a while, if I'm being honest.
Is it because it's a cat?
No, not because it's a cat. I think Incubate is a powerful mechanic. It can sit there, it can block if you have the open mana, if you really wanted it to. Also, you can sacrifice those Incubate tokens to anything you wanted that sacrifices artifacts. If your Incubator tokens are flipped over and they die, you're triggering that proliferate. Everything about this card screams poison counters to me. So, yeah, Brimaz, pretty powerful in my eyes.
I didn't really think about that, but yeah, that infect is kind of cool. It's a really easy way to proliferate.
You're playing white, black infect. You got to be playing toxic with this because white does not do infect very well, and then black has an infect package. But I feel like if you're playing infect, you
need that
really
green.
want to be in green.
Yeah.
Well, I look at it like with these couple of last sets, Phyrexians obviously were the big baddies in all these sets. There is so many, and a lot of old cards got errata to add the word Phyrexian to them. There is a lot to choose from. You have Shieldred, you have Elish Norn. You could throw every version of both into this deck. It triggers your commander. They 100% are kill on sight too. Just Elish Norn and Shieldred. So if they get killed, obviously not by exile spells, but if they get killed, it triggers your commander. So
I don't know, my thought on this being more so is like I would want to build this as like Artifact Storm, because every time I cast an artifact, it's gonna incubate. So like all of my artifacts basically count as 2, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah, could throw on that Phyrexian stipulation. Interesting.
I'm going to do 2 things I hate to do. And one is going to be disagree with David. And 2 is going to be agree with Hunter.
Let's go, Steven.
I really do hate doing that. I think that Brimaz is super terrifying, built correctly, obviously. I don't think... You know what? I'm going to retract what I was about to say. I was going to say I think you have to build this deck with expensive in mind. But after looking at the $100 list and the $300 list that you put together, Hunter, I think that it was very well put together. And I think that even though it is a very limited lane, technically, because you do have to do Phyrexians or artifacts, I think that in white-black Aristocrat, looking to sacrifice a bunch of stuff, proliferating, getting those poison counters, especially after this last couple sets, in the additions of these creatures, I don't think you're going to have a problem. I think this card is going to be a sleeper, and you should not sleep on it.
A sleeper that we don't sleep on. Here to hear first, folks.
I love it. Well, let's move on to the grades then. Steven, what are you giving it?
I'm actually going to give this, and I know I'm going to get hate, but I'm going to give it an A.
No. Oh,
whoa!
Man.
Yep.
Wow.
I'm going to be honest with you there, Steven. I was not going A. Matter of fact, I'm still sticking with my grade. I'm saying it's a C. Yeah, I love average cards, and this is one of them.
I think it's also a C. I think it's middle of the road, can pop off. Just playing some fair magic.
There's nothing fair about this card.
I like fair.
I'm still not sold. I think that this is slower than what it probably should be. I don't know. I just don't think incubate is a real thing. I'm gonna give this a D. Our grades are all over the place on this card.
Wow. We got an A, we got 2 C's.
Well, we know
and
where
a
we
D.
lie, Hunter.
The average for Brimaz is a C. Moving on to the backup commander for that deck. That was Growing Threat, in case you didn't say it earlier. It is Moira and Teshar. Moira and Teshar is 3, a white, and a black for a 4/5 legendary creature for Phyrexian Spirit Bird. It's got flying. It says whenever you cast a historic spell, return target non-land permanent card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step. If it would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. Little reminder, historic spells are artifacts, legendaries, and sagas. Steven, what do you think?
I mean, I think this card's pretty solid. I mean, 5 mana for a 4/5 with flying, and you get to do some fun stuff when you cast historic spells. I mean, it's not terrible. I mean, obviously you're in the right colors to sacrifice a bunch of stuff. So after discovering Sundial of the Infinite, I've never really cared. So
Just
Am I
ending the
crazy?
turn.
Am I crazy to think this is like insane recursion?
It is interesting recursion, as long as you can keep your stuff around, right? It says if it would leave anywhere else, it gets exiled, so you can't bounce it to your hand. If you make it to your end step, it just exiles as well. But there is an ability where you can blink things to make those triggers not happen, so your stuff does stick around.
Yeah, but even if they don't, I guess as the floor, I would say, getting something a second time for free, that seems relevant. This seems like a really good card.
It's not free. You have to cast the spell.
Sure, you cast the Soul Ring. Let's go.
I mean, he's got a point there. In like a self-mill deck, or if you're specifically putting cards in your graveyard, like you can recur big stuff with this. Like historic spells are also legendary, which means you can get I don't know, some big threat, one of the big ass Eldrazi, or like one of the big demons or angels or anything like that you're just going to be able to recur and hopefully just like storm off or take advantage of them. At the same time, this is kind of an expensive cost. You have to be doing other things. Like this does quite literally nothing on its own. And does require a setup.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'll agree with you, man. But the fact that you're able to cast any historic spell, it's like you could cast a Soul Ring and get a 10 mana permanent. That to me is pretty value. Much value.
It is. That permanent has to have a relevant ability though, because you're going to get rid of it at the beginning of the next end step. So
that's true.
Agreed. You will 100% get rid of it if you don't have a setup, but at the end of the day, you know, I hate saying it because I mean Shane got it stuck in my head, but you build around the deck. Like you would build around the fact that you're trying to do that. I mean, this is like the proper colors for even if it does leave the battlefield and you sacrifice it to an artifact, you sacrifice it to a creature, you're in the great colors to start pinging people left and right.
Like, what do you? Okay, elaborate on pinging people.
Blood Artist.
So you're telling me at this point that you're gonna have the additional piece in play for you to also sacrifice those things, because once again, those aren't gonna trigger with just this in play.
Yeah,
you're right.
It's a lot of setup.
but it might be a lot of setup, but I mean you're building the deck for it.
I can say that about every legendary creature though. That doesn't mean that every legendary creature is gonna be good.
I mean, not every legendary creature lets me bring back a 10 mana cost card that I can go just entomb into my graveyard and then play a fucking Soul Ring.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I understand that is the power level of this card, but at the same time, like, I'm not reanimating, I don't know, like an Avacyn and being like, hey, I got him because it's gonna go away. And it doesn't have haste, so it's not like I'm smacking somebody.
No, it gains haste. Exile at the beginning, yeah, gains haste.
Oh, I'm sorry. Disregard that point. I did not see that line.
But you know, at the end of the day,
Eldrazi's. I like that idea. Turn 6, if in Merry Christmas Land, dude. Turn 6, you can swing in like a 12. Well, no, because you have to pay for, I'm guessing, the one artifact.
Free.
Oh, okay. Well, then fuck it. We'll play some Cheerios, dude. Play some free ones. Get a 12/12 with Annihilator 4. That seems kind of scary.
I mean, or go get Villas, you know?
Yeah, and go get your combo engines and stuff. So like I recognize that yes, the potential is there. At the same time, I feel like this is also another one of those decks where you do have to set it up a lot. And like the more pieces involved in your combo or in your setup, like the more opportunities there are for your opponents to interfere.
True.
I'm not saying that the card is bad, by the way.
I know.
I would just like to point out that this Precon deck has two commanders that couldn't be further from each other. I feel like these are two very different decks.
Yeah, I mean, one has flying, the other one doesn't. Of course, they're gonna be far away.
Oh
they're both mid-rangey decks that care about artifacts.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the grades. I am sticking with my grade. It is a C to me.
I agree with Hunter on this one. I think this is very just middle of the road. It's C.
Agree. Even though I said it's fun, I agree. It's a C. It could be very fun.
All right, I'm going to do one of my favorite things to do, and that's disagree with all of you. And I'm going to say this is a B.
All right, buddy.
Well, the average grade for Moira and Teshar is a C. Moving on to Tinker Time. That is the Precon deck, helmed by Gimbal, Gremlin, Prodigy. It is 2, a green, a blue, and a red for a 4/4 legendary creature, Gremlin Artificer. It says artifact creatures you control have trample. And it says at the beginning of your end step, create a 0/0 red Gremlin artifact creature token. Put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of differently named artifact tokens you control. David, you were the upgrade guide to this deck. What did you think about this card?
So I think that this is a really interesting lane to take Teamer and make a color combination that normally doesn't care about artifacts at all and make it care about artifacts. I think it's really cool that it wants to care about like the different kinds of artifact tokens out there, because I mean like there are a lot there. This is a way for you to make like food relevant in EDH. My problem with this is that this guy costs way more than what he probably should. Like, you're probably never going to attack with this, so I don't understand why this card couldn't have been like a 2/2 and then like drop him down in mana value. Because coming in at 5 mana, he's incredibly slow. He requires a massive amount of setup, and he really doesn't have much of a payoff. Like, you make one thing, and it's probably not very big.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there.
Yeah, I think we're all going to be in agreement on this one.
It's a weird stipulation to have different named artifacts. We haven't seen that, like you said. It's different. Obviously, you're going to want thopters, food, treasure, clues. You're just flooding the deck
Blood.
with just as much. Academy Manufacturer is the best card to put in this deck.
It is, but at the same time, like I also feel like this is a really weird deck because like you're making these things, and then if you're using them, they're going to go away, and then it makes your deck worse. So like if you're making treasure tokens and then you're burning those treasure tokens to cast your spells, and you no longer have treasure tokens, your gremlins are getting like they're going to be smaller.
Well, they have counters, so I mean, if you did it before.
Well, that being my point,
it's like,
yeah, you're going to use this on your end step. So, like, if I use my food token, or if you know what, I really need to draw cards. If I use my clue, like, shit, my gremlin is just going to be smaller. And like, green is cool, and that there is counter manipulation here. Like, you can proliferate this in green, blue. You can add extra counters with green. Like, there is stuff to do with this commander. My biggest thing here is I feel like he shares too much in common with the Urza that we just saw. And that card is just better in really every capacity.
I agree.
Yeah, I think you're right, Dave.
I wish he was tweaked a little bit. I wish he was smaller, or I don't know, did something a little bit differently with these artifact tokens.
Sorry, I just got back. I thought we weren't talking about these cards because they're so bad.
All right, we're moving on to grades.
I'm giving it a D.
I'm going to give it a D as well.
I am also going to give this a D.
I'm going to give this an A, man.
Top.
Nah, this is getting a D. Yeah, I mean, I didn't really put too much input into that, so I apologize for anyone at home that really wanted to hear my opinion.
Oh my god.
I do like the fact that this artifact creatures you control get trample, but that is pretty much the only relevant part that I really do like about this. Other than that, this deck is so aggressive.
The average grade for Gimbal is going to be a D. Moving on to the secondary commander for Tinker Time. This is Rashmi and Ragavan. It is 1 a green, a blue, and a red for a 2/4 legendary creature elf monkey. It says whenever you cast your first spell during each of your turns, exile the top card of target opponent's library and create a treasure token. Then you may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost if it's a spell with mana value less than the number of artifacts you control. If you don't cast it this way, you may cast it this turn. We're going to start again with David because you actually changed the face commander of your upgrade to Rashmi and Ragavan. I want to hear your thoughts on the card.
So I did switch for the 100, and I guess actually also for the $300 Precon upgrade. This is another card that I just kind of find is really weird. I love this lane whenever it comes to Teamer. I think that caring about artifact tokens is a very cool and unique thing. However, this is 4 mana for a commander that often does literally nothing. There's a high whiff potential here with you having to target a specific opponent, and then they're going to flip over a card. If they flipped over a land, you just don't get anything. And I feel like oftentimes that's, at least from my luck, that's what happens. I just exiled their land and nobody benefits. So I do feel like this is a commander that even whenever you fully build around and even whenever it's doing everything that it wants to be doing, there's a chance that it just does nothing.
I was going to say the fact, too, that when we were playing this or when we see this in play, we thought that, or no, this didn't count for itself, right? Or something. What was the case?
Yeah, you guys thought this didn't count as a spell.
Right. And like, so that kind of just made the deck a little weirder, right, David? Or just, I don't know about weird is the right word, but
it's just sequencing that like this is
Lower.
like really susceptible
Lower, yeah.
to removal, because like if your opponents do remove this, not only do you have to wait, but like this counts as your first spell the turn that you cast it. So you get this thing back into play, and it kind of like it almost time walks you, where it's like you lost 2 turns, not 1.
yeah, it's super weird. I didn't like that either. I didn't like that for you.
It really is weird that this card does absolutely nothing when you cast it. You cannot do anything with that ability until your whole next turn. So, yeah, it's weird, man.
I mean, going off of the Precon upgrade that David did, at least for the 100, I have not seen the 300 yet, but it was popping off so well. And I think the biggest thing that I'm kind of taking away from it now is it really wasn't the commander. The commander was just there. It was the cards that David added. So I mean, to be honest with you, you could really put any teamer commander in here. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, like I don't know. I just feel like even in games where I have like 20 tokens in play, I never feel like I'm actually in control.
Well, let's move on to the grades for Rashmi and Ragavan. We'll start with you, David. What are you giving it?
I'm gonna give this a D. It does things, and I really like the design of this card. I just really wish that it was like, I don't know, each opponent flipped, and then you got to choose which one of those three spells you were going to take advantage of. That way, it's like you're not as likely to whiff on this.
So you don't necessarily like the design of the card?
I mean, I like what it does. I just wish that it was tweaked. Obviously, like
I know, I'm just messing with you. I'm giving it a D as well. That first sentence, whenever you cast your first spell, just ruins this card because it doesn't do anything the turn it comes in.
Yep. And for that, I'm going to give it a D with you.
The D train is arriving at platform D.
I don't know how this deck managed to walk with two of these commanders that like really need so much help.
The average grade for Rashmi and Ragavan is going to be a D. Moving on to Divine Convocation. This is another Precon deck helmed by Kasla the Broken Halo. It is 3, a blue, a red, and a white for a 5/4 legendary creature angel ally. It's got Convoke, which means your creatures can help cast this spell. Each creature you tap while casting this spell pays for 1 generic or 1 mana of that creature's color. It's got Flying, it's got Vigilance, it's got Haste. It says whenever you cast another spell that has Convoke, scry 2, then draw a card. Shane, you were the guy that upgraded this deck. What do you think of Kasla?
I think this deck out of the box is very exciting. That's the right word to use. I didn't, for the 100, go with this as the commander because I liked the other option, obviously. But like her, I'm actually kind of excited because I'm going to be messing with her in the future. And just the fact that you can have a Convoke spell at the ready in your command zone is enticing because there are times playing a Convoke deck where you just don't have the Convoke in your hand. And so it kind of feels like, well, I'm playing this deck. There aren't too many Convoke cards in general in these colors, as of yet at least. With their getting support, but just having the ability to where if you want to cast something with Convoke, it's right there. That's pretty enticing. And then when you do end up casting other Convoke spells, the ability to scry and draw is pretty relevant. The deck did come with a lot of card draw, but again, just card draw stapled in your command zone. I guess for that to win, you'd have to. I don't know if you'd be relying on commander damage yet. Well, we'll see. But I don't know. I just like I said, that idea of having Convoke in the command zone is very appealing when you're playing the token strategy.
Yeah, if you get the token strategy going, I see this card as never ever costing what it should cost.
Yeah, that's my idea at least.
Like at the same time though, because I understand that, do you feel like this card is overcosted to begin with? Because like in a perfect world, yes, you're gonna have like your army of creature tokens that are gonna make this thing so much cheaper. But after a board wipe, whenever your creatures are gone, if this thing was in play, it's now gonna cost 8. Like that is a lot to get it back into play.
Yeah, I'll say it's an aggressive. It is a bit high. I do agree, but hopefully you can just keep rebuilding the token strat. That's the idea, at least.
Yeah, and token strat, if you could do it right, it does a really good job of building the board back up quickly.
Yeah. What does Steven think?
I didn't really. I mean, I like Convoke. I think it's a cool mechanic. I just, at least for my kind of play style, I don't want to build a board state to then just tap it and leave myself pretty much defenseless with one card. Granted, I think Convoke is more of an aspect for, the big spells. But the big spells aren't terribly broken because you can Convoke them. So, I don't know. It's a boring card, but fun at the same time, which is kind of weird.
I just feel like this is probably a little too payoff heavy. Like what Steven had just mentioned, this card obviously is better with the more expensive spells out there. Like you don't want to be casting your 3 mana Convoke off of this and hoping to trigger. But I don't know. I feel like it's also a very limited lane too. Like you want to be playing this really expensive spell so that you can get the payoff. But if this isn't in play, like you're not going to cast some really expensive spells because it's not going to like help you. I don't know.
Well, what do you mean by the payoff?
I'm talking myself in circles here.
Just you could Convoke, like you said, at 3 mana, and the payoff is the same.
No, I get it, but like
and drawing.
Typically, like most of your spells that have Convoke, you probably don't want to be casting them for 3. You want to be tapping like a massive amount of creatures down and a ton of mana. That way, you're like hitting for X is equal to like 10 or any of the like the big X spells.
Well, if the Convoke has an X in it, sure.
Yeah, and I know that not everyone does, but it's like Convoke is typically a mechanic that you see on more expensive cards. So like the payoff is 100% there. Like once your board state is established, you can do a lot of really cool splashy things. I just feel like this is a deck that's going to be like really susceptible to board wipes. I don't know. She's like very high risk, high reward. I've also got to say too, this is probably my favorite artwork of the entire set. Not just the Commander product, but just like the set in general. I love the way that this card works, or the way that the card looks.
It's all perched up, dude.
Yeah, it's definitely awesome art. Even the art on the box was cool. It's different, but it's cool. Let's move on to the grades. Shane, what are you giving Kasla?
It's hard for me to grade her, but I think she's a C that has potential to be much higher, but I guess I'll just give her a C for now.
I'm going to join you there. I'm giving this a C just because of what David said exactly. If you don't have the board state, it is still going to be too expensive.
I'm actually going to go with a D on this. Blue and red aren't very good colors whenever it comes to Convoke. White obviously has a lot of really solid options out there, but I do also want to put a disclaimer in there that Convoke is a mechanic that has appeared multiple times. It's probably going to come back, and I would imagine that this might even be a plant that we might see Convoke come back in a standard set within, say, I don't know, the next year or two. So I think this is a card that will get better with time.
Sure, but that time's not now. So this gets a D.
Well, the average grade for Kasla, the Broken Halo, is a C. Moving on to the secondary commander of the Divine Convocation deck, this is Saint Traft and Rem Karolus. It is a blue, red, and white for a 3/4 legendary creature Spirit Human. It says when Saint Traft and Rem Karolus becomes tapped, create a 1/1 red human creature token if it's the first time this ability has resolved this turn. If it's the second time, create a 1/1 blue spirit creature token with flying. If it's the third time, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying. And whenever you cast a spell that has Convoke, untap Saint Traft and Rem Karolus. I'm going to start with Shane. Once again, you did the $100 upgrade to the deck and used this one as the face commander.
This card right away screamed like it would be way better at the helm. The fact that it does everything you want. You can cast it, you can use it as mana right away, give you more creatures to then use as mana right away. It'll untap itself if you have the Convoke spell in hand. Hey, shout out to playing them on turn 3 and just attacking. That's a great thing to do too.
But great strategy.
It's a great strategy. But no, this card I think is rad. I think just even the design of this card is if anything, I thought it should have been the face commander of this deck because it just feels so much more like a Convoke commander, if that makes sense.
Sure. I mean, I guess I can agree with that in terms of it being a Convoke commander because you want to tap this down. You're only getting that 1/1 though, so you got to find a way to untap this to get those other two resolved.
Well, yeah, ideally you're tapping this 3 times in a turn.
Yeah, and it is very interesting to see the exact opposite of 3 mana versus the 6 mana spell that we saw for the face commander. But I don't know if it's too powerful because you have to continue to untap this over and over.
100%.
I mean, there are other ways aside from Convoke to untap, so I think that this one is actually much more flexible than the other, than the face commander of this set. So I think this one's actually really interesting. There are many different ways in Magic the Gathering that you can untap a creature. So, I mean, there's ways for you to be able to abuse that and then potentially Convoke or just attack with this thing to tap it down for that last time. Like, I don't think getting that 4/4 Angel is going to be really that difficult if you're actively trying with this card.
I agree.
I think this card's amazing. I love the fact that it's 3 mana. To me, every commander that is 3 mana is probably some of my favorites. Statted really good at a 3/4. Shane basically said it best. I mean, you play this turn 3. If it has haste, you get to tap it to attack, and then it makes a 1/1. And then you get to use that to then convoke, and then you can untap it. And then, you can tap it again with another spell. But the way I see this played is you tap it to convoke, and then you untap it, and then you go to attack, and then you get the other creature. So you have 2 creatures by playing 1 spell. Or you can play the 2, and then you can get all 3. Or you can be a real dick, and you can play Isochron Scepter with Dramatic Reversal, and you can use Springleaf Drum, and you can just make all the tokens you want. Like, it's nuts, man. Like, this card has so much potential. It's really good.
So, I mean, important to note there, and I'm going to interject on your Springleaf Drum and Dramatic Reversal. He only makes a 4/4 once. It's not 3 or more.
True.
Still a crazy card, dude.
It's also each turn. So, I mean, it's...
Yeah. I just wanted to stress the fact that it's like, you're not going to cast this and then tap and untap and tap and untap and like go infinite.
True.
But to then come back to your turn and have 12 creatures is pretty good.
I will say that it's easier to replenish a board state after a board wipe with this commander.
Yep, let's move on to the grades. Shane, what are you giving it?
I'm going to give this bad boy a B.
Whoa, big. I am not there. I'm giving it a D. I do not like this card very much.
Wow. I'm going to be middle of the road here. I'm going to give this thing a C. I think that this really has a lot of potential and is aggressively costed. Kind of like what I mentioned with the last commander, though. It's not in the most ideal colors for Convoke, but I do think this is going to get better as things progress.
Yep, and like I said last time, that time is not now, but I think that with the fact that this isn't as costly and it does pay off a little bit more in my mind, I'm going to actually go with Shane here and give this a B.
Let's go.
Wow. Well, the average grade for Saint Traft and Rem Karolus is a C. Moving on to the final Precon deck. This is Cavalry Charge, the face commander, Sidar Jabari of Zhalfir. It is 1, a white, a blue, and a black for a 4/3 legendary creature human knight. It has eminence that says whenever you attack with 1 or more knights, if Sidar Jabari of Zhalfir is in the command zone or on the battlefield, draw a card, then discard a card. It also has flying and first strike, and it also says whenever Sidar Jabari deals combat damage to a player, return target knight creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Steven, you are the guy that did the upgrade to Cavalry Charge. What do you think of Sidar Jabari?
I was the guy that did that. I mean, to be honest with you, this card's busted, man. I mean, I feel like anytime you put eminence on a creature, it's pretty good. The eminence is really good just because you can draw and then discard. Flying first strike with the second ability was just nuts. So with first strike being on this card, it triggers the second ability. So whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you return target knight creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Hit in on that first strike damage, put another creature on the field, and then let's say you get a knight with, give all knights double strike. Now all your creatures have double strike. This card can now attack again. Extra value. I mean, there's just so much you can do. It's nuts, man.
Yep, this card is insane. We've seen it being played a couple of times. We played it against you in our $100 battle, Steven. It went off. And we saw it in just a regular Precon version with Dave when we were playing in person, and it also seemed to dominate the other 4 Precons. This Eminence, why put it on just one Precon? I don't get it.
I'm going to go ahead and say I would actually happily love to never see Eminence again. I think it's a busted mechanic and it's not very fun.
Yeah.
Well, it's fun if you're playing it.
I mean,
it is.
I was playing it.
And you were having fun.
I'm still going to say that it's not very fun. It's such a powerful mechanic to know that your card is relevant at all points in time in the game, regardless of what your opponents are doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
What do you think about the card itself, David?
I mean, the card itself, it's a wonderful value engine. And I don't know, just the fact that it is doing so much. It's drawing you cards, it's recurring your things, it's filtering your hand. It is doing a massive amount. And like, I don't know. To me personally, I'm just very confused. Like, this is a 4-mana creature, and I look back at Tinker Time, the deck that I upgraded, and like Rashmi is a 4-mana creature. So like to see the comparison of the two, it's like one of them is very much so better than the other. And I just don't see how this lines up. Like, I think Sidar would have been very good at 5 mana, and I think honestly he probably still would have been appropriate at 6. But he's 4.
Yeah, he's insane.
He's way too pushed. This card has too much words, dude. Too many words.
Too many good words.
Too many good words.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I don't really buy the precons for most of the decks that I build, but this was one that I bought almost immediately. It was gorgeous, man. I mean, just straight out of the box. And like you said, you guys played with David. I mean, it was nuts, man. You know, I was on Spell Table playing a couple games with it, and I started off in a precon lobby and dominated there. So I moved on to some more higher power lobbies, and it kept up with some, you know, granted, I mean, it's just a number, but like it kept up with some 8 power decks, and it was kind of nuts. Really, the only thing that really stops this precon is like some really expensive counter spells and like just stuff that just like people targeting you. It's really it.
Yeah, I would say you have to kill this on site, but it still triggers in the command zone. So,
Hey, but
let's move on.
it doesn't get the knights though, Hunter. And
Doesn't go and get the knights,
not getting horsemanship knights is a big deal.
but they can still be played without this.
I know, dude. It's going to be hard to recur in these colors too.
Let's move on to the grades. Steven, what are you giving it?
I'm going to give this an A, man. I mean, honestly, not because I did the deck upgrade, but because this card is super push and super great.
I'm right there with you, man. It's hard not to give it anything lower than an A. It's an A for me.
It's definitely an A, dude.
I'm actually not going to give this thing an A. I think that this card is fantastic. I think it does so much. But I'm going to give this a B just because like I feel like this technically, I guess, can't be a kill on site commander. I don't know, partially because it doesn't matter if your opponent's killing on site. But also because like it's not going to just like close the game the turn that it drops, I don't think.
Yeah, well, the average grade here is going to be an A. Moving on to the final commander we're talking about. This is the backup commander to Sidar Jabari. This is Elenda and Azor. It is 3, a white, a blue, and a black for a 6/6 legendary creature, Vampire Knight Sphinx. It's got flying, it's got ward 2, and it says whenever Elenda and Azor attacks, you may pay X, white, blue, black. If you do, draw X cards. At the beginning of each end step, you may pay 4 life. If you do, create a number of 1/1 Black Vampire Knight creature tokens with lifelink equal to the number of cards you've drawn this turn. Steven, we're going to start with you again. You dealt with this card. What do you think of it?
I did deal with this card. I got rid of it in my precon upgrade. What I will say is playing with just a straight precon, no upgrades. I drew this card in my first 7. And I discarded it immediately with his ability, or Sidar's ability, and I got it back whenever I attacked, and it does really good things when it's on the board. I think 6 mana is an aggressive cost for any commander, and that's usually what makes me stray away from cards like this. What I will say is this is an amazing color set for drawing a bunch of cards, and that last ability where you can pay 4 life. You don't have to pay the amount of life for each card you drew, you just pay 4 lives flat. So if you drew 10 cards that turn, you're making 10 1/1s with lifelink. So, I mean, I'm trying not to hate on this card because I took it out of both my 100 and my 300. I think that this card could be a solid commander. It's not the kind of card for me.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this card does a lot, and it actually kind of reminds me of some like the old school legendary creatures. Coming in at 6 mana, this thing is an absolute powerhouse once it hits play. It does have a card draw ability, but it costs a ton of mana. I mean, if you pay 4 mana, you're drawing 1 card. So just like keep in mind, you're probably playing a Passco deck if you are planning on using that ability. Of which, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, you're definitely not using a Passco deck because you're spending all of your mana to draw those cards. I don't know. I love the fact that this has ward. I love the fact that it's a big beater, and I love the fact that it has that ability to make a ton of tokens for you. The more that I'm thinking about this now, I think that middle line of text is probably just irrelevant, the paying mana to draw cards. There's so much better ways for you to draw cards in Esper.
Yeah, that's kind of where I alluded to. That is a very expensive draw. You have to get those colors plus X. So 4 mana to draw 1 card. That's a bit much, in my opinion.
Yeah, I guess in the deck, if you are building around drawing cards in other avenues, sure. Then you can pay for life, make a bunch of 1/1s. But it's weird that these two commanders were in the same deck because one is clearly the right choice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, they are two very different commanders. I mean, it is two very different play styles. You know, one you're going Knight Tribal, and then the other one you are just trying to draw a bunch of cards and make a bunch of tokens. Which, I mean, in Esper, tokens is a very viable strategy. I think with this card, anytime I had it on the field, I never once looked at that second line of text, man. I never once looked at that draw X cards.
At the same time, though, I mean, the tokens you're making are also knights, so like it is relevant with the creature type that it's producing.
Sure, it's still garbage for the deck in my mind.
Ooh, I actually very much so disagree. I think this is one of the best recursion targets.
Ooh, spicy meatballs.
I never want to pay 6 for this, but to just like pitch this and recur it, get into play for free.
True.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah,
True.
well, we're talking about if this was the face commander. So let's move on to the grades, and we'll start with Steven.
For this one, I'm going to give a C.
I am lower than that. This is a D for me.
Ooh,
I think I'm on a D as well, man.
I think this card is. I'm gonna go with a C. I think it's kind of middle of the road. It's a big beater. It does a really good job of protecting itself at war, and its last ability is also really relevant as well. Esper does a wonderful job of drawing cards, so like you're probably gonna be able to make a pretty decent amount of tokens.
Well, Elenda and Azor gets an average grade of a C. And that is going to do it for all the Precon commander grades from this cycle of commanders from March of the Machine. Comment down below if you agree with these grades or if you disagree with these grades. We're interested to hear all opinions. Hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you did like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Check the description down below where you'll find links to our Instagram, our Twitter, our TikTok. That's @GuysThatMagic for each one. And until the next video, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace.
Bye-bye.
Later.
Later.